What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Kevin Ramos for the $10 donation via the Cash App. Much respect to him for showing love to Too Raw for TV. All right, so let's talk a little bit of boxing history today. Let's do a little bit of speculation here. And let's talk about a dream matchup between two of the great welterweights, although they did fight in other categories, obviously, weight categories throughout their careers, but they were probably, I would say they were at their most dangerous at 147. That being Felix Trinidad and Thomas the Hitman Hearns, okay? Now, Trinidad, I think, went up to as high as 160, but he didn't quite seem to have the same power at 160, the same devastating power at 160 that he had at 147 and 154. Whereas Hitman Thomas Hearns, his power more or less translated all the way up to, I believe he got up to light heavyweight, going from 147 to 175. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. 168 or 175, somewhere along that range. But he was just a freak of nature, man. Like, look, they're both big welterweights. I think Trinidad was 5'11" with like a 71-inch reach, but Thomas Hearns was 6'1" with like a 78-inch reach, which is heavyweight category, like Mike Tyson's reach, you know what I'm saying? Rocky Marciano's reach, Jack Dempsey's reach, I don't believe his either. Then they have reaches that long, so it's crazy. He's a freak of nature, man. So look, if these two fought each other at 147, I mean, what would have happened? Well, I mean, you really don't know, quite frankly, what's going to happen when you have two, this is just my opinion, when you have two big punchers fighting each other, both fighters possess the great equalizer, meaning that technically one lucky punch can offset whatever the other guy's doing. He could be having a masterful performance, but if one quote-unquote lucky punch lands, although you have to do certain things to set up that lucky punch, in my opinion, it offsets everything. We saw that with Rocky Marciano against Judge Joe Walcott. The first time they fought each other, Judge Joe Walcott was winning by a wide margin. But Rocky caught him in the 13th round, back when they had 15-round fights, and ended the fight. Now, psychologically, that did something to Judge Joe Walcott because in their second fight, Rocky made short work of him. To a lesser extent, you could make the same argument with George Foreman when he fought Michael Moore. Moore was winning the fight. Not by as wide as margins. I think Judge Joe Walcott was beating Rocky Marciano, but he was winning the fight by a decent margin when George Foreman set him up. So let's go back to this situation. Now, if I had to just take a guess here, right? Felix Trinidad was a notorious slow starter, okay? That's one of the things that got him in trouble initially with Oscar De La Hoya. But Oscar foolishly gave rounds away, thinking he had the fight in the bag, and Trinidad came back and won that fight, a fight that he probably should have lost. Whereas Thomas the Hitman Hearns was often a fast starter. So you could make an argument that Thomas Hitman Hearns should just pounce on Felix. But I think that's an unnecessary risk. I think what Thomas the Hitman Hearns should do is start off and display his superior boxing ability. Display your superior boxing ability and bank up rounds. Bank up rounds without taking unnecessary risk, because although Thomas Hitman Hearns' chin was stronger than Felix Trinidad's chin, I would still say that he's at risk of getting inadvertently knocked out or hurt. You know what I'm saying? Because Felix Trinidad is still a world-class power puncher. I think he should take advantage of his boxing ability, and then still, throughout the fight, a fight where you're more in control of yourself, while you're displaying your superior boxing ability, making Trinidad chase you. You know what I'm saying? Not chase you, but you know what I'm saying? Making Trinidad expend energy, I guess I should say. Still work that absolute jackhammer right hand. Make him respect that. Make him taste your power, which is going to kind of knock off Trinidad's game plan, because Trinidad is more effective coming at a guy, right? But if he's getting rocked with that motherfucker, then it's kind of making him cautious. And I think in those situations, in that situation, is more likely Trinidad's going to make a mistake. Now, Trinidad, and the reason why I say I think that Thomas Hitman Hearns should come at him as a boxer is because when you look at it, Trinidad was only knocked out one time, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's by, what's his name? Hopkins. But when you look at the boxers, the guys who were superior fighters that he fought, whether it's Winky Wright, whether it's De La Hoya, whether it's Hopkins, now, by the time he fought old boy, what was his name? The one that got hit by a car a couple of years ago. He was faded. He wasn't the same guy. But generally speaking, Trinidad struggled against boxers. He struggled against them. So I think in this scenario, he should come at him as a boxer. And then as Trinidad lay it on, if he fall behind, Trinidad becomes more desperate for points and desperate to stay in the fight and win the fight. He can become more aggressive. He's going to start throwing power shots. Then that's when you can catch this motherfucker making more mistakes. And I think if, you know, so as long as you avoid getting hit with something meaningful yourself, if you're Thomas Hitman Hearns, then I think you can win that fight rather easily. That's just my opinion on the situation, okay? And I think ultimately what'll happen is either it'll be unanimous decision, Thomas Hitman Hearns, especially if it's 147 or 154. Thomas Hitman Hearns, or hell, late stoppage. Late stoppage, 10th, 11th round. Down, matter of fact, now that I think about it, it may not go 12 rounds, the full 12. I can see Thomas Hitman Hearns taking care of business and knocking him the fuck out. Knocking him the fuck out. Because, look, you could argue, yeah, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, you know what I'm saying, was knocked down quite a few times in his career, but, I mean, he was knocked down or beaten by, some of the all-time greats, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking Sugar Ray Leonard. We're talking Marvin Hagler at his absolute apex. We're talking a very, very underrated Iron Barkley. You know what I'm saying? We saw what he did to the hands of Stone. Roberto Duran. And I'm making one other point about the difference between the two, right? What are the difference between the two? And if you put Felix Trinidad in a ring against Floyd Mayweather, I think Floyd Mayweather destroys Felix Trinidad. If you put prime Floyd Mayweather in the ring against Felix Trinidad, I think ultimately, after giving away maybe 1 or 2 rounds, making adjustments and figuring, out how to exactly fight Felix Trinidad, which he might even have to do that. He destroys him. Whereas I think Thomas the Hitman Hearns, with his boxing ability and with his freakish reach and power, he's the one guy that I think could have beaten Floyd Mayweather just because of his gifts and the tools he brought coming into the ring. I'm gonna tell you something else too. Oh, the guy I was thinking about was Sweet Pea Whitaker. When he fought Trinidad, he was, if I remember correctly, he was way past it, man. But I'm gonna tell you another thing, man. I think when you think of Emmanuel Stewart and how great a trainer he is, Thomas the Hitman Hearns is probably his signature fight. That what he did as far as creating one of the great fighters in the history of the game, and Thomas the Hitman Hearns is just remarkable. And by the way, Thomas the Hitman Hearns was robbed of a victory against Sugar Ray Leonard. That was no draw in their last contest. That should have been another victory. And even Sugar Ray Leonard admitted that. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think, man. Tell me what you guys think.